Howdy ho, it's me, and I am about just over 1 week postpartum from having a baby, and I wanted to tell my birth story. The rest of my family is out for the evening, and it's kind of now or never, so I thought, okay, I'm just gonna get this out there, because I did Carice's whenever she was born, and I've already journaled out the birth story. But I wanted to document it, even just for my own sake, on video, and then a few people have asked if they could hear it. So, for those who watch it, thank you. That means a lot to me that you would want to hear the story. And this is the most easy way I can tell it. So, and I might try to make a pregnancy story video because I had an incredible pregnancy. And it really, I made some changes within my diet and even just exercise and things like that ended up like changing my life. And so I might make a second video if I have time, but I also want to get a bath, and maybe a nap. I don't know. Who knows what the night will hold. But we've been struggling to get to bed before like 2 a.m. because from about 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. He like wakes up. So I think we'll see how much time we have. So he was born on the 29th, and it was very fast. I had a very normal day, and I had like kind of resigned myself to the fact okay, this baby is not going to come early. I'm going to put all the birth totes and things, because we're planning a home birth. So I'm going to put everything in the basement, and we'll just pull it up when I go into labor and set everything up then. Because my last labor with Carice was 3 days at home before we transferred for an emergency C-section. And I don't even know if you can call it an emergency C-section because there was no rush, there was no like pressing. They even, by my own request, delayed doing the C-section by a few hours just so I could get the date and the time I wanted. So it wasn't really an emergency. It was just a transfer from a home birth setting. This one was crazy. So it started, I'm trying to think like when I would even start it, because I want to say around 8 p.m. I started to notice, and don't watch this if you're going to be queasy, because I'm going to talk about body fluids, and I'm just going to tell it like it is. I'm going to describe the whole birth process. So if that's going to be offensive, just stop now. So I started noticing like moisture, and I was wondering, did my water break? And I just didn't notice, like, because sometimes it can just be like a very slow trickle. And then my other thought was, or am I just peeing my pants? Like, I hope not. I don't want to be the kind of like, I do not want, not the kind of person, but I don't want to be a person who pees my pants. But pregnancy does crazy things to people, so I'm just like, okay, am I just like peeing my pants, or is my water broken? But it wasn't enough to really like think about that much. So I went on with my evening, like I didn't even need a panty liner or anything. I'm doing my chicken chores, I'm cooking and cleaning and yada yada. Well, we put Carice down, started a movie, and by the time that the movie was like halfway over, I want to say this was around 9:30 or 10, I am like sitting, I have all of these incontinence pads that I got for the postpartum, because after you have a baby, you just sweat profusely. So you can see my glow is not really a glow, it's just the sweat. Because your body is getting rid of all of these hormones. And so I have all of these incontinence pads that I got A for the birth, and then B, you can wash them. And then I was thinking, okay, I'm just going to put these on my bed and sleep on them. And that way I don't have to change the bottom sheet every day if I sweat a lot. And last time we also used them in our bassinet, kind of as a sheet, and we just tucked them in really tight. And they were super easy to clean. And then right now on our couch over here, we're using one of them in the corner there, as like a makeshift changing table. And they're awesome because if he like pees all over it, we can just toss it in the laundry. And then when we're done with them, they go back into our birth kit tote for next time. So they have a ton of practical uses. So I'm sitting on one of these incontinence pads and I'm like, this thing is like getting wet. And I said to Brandon, hey, I think I am going into labor. Just so you know, we're probably going to have a baby by this time tomorrow. Like, just so you know, it's like 9:30 p.m. He's like, okay, whatever. And I'm like, maybe we should review the task list. You know, I had created in Google an event, and in the description I had a list of like, do all of these things the minute I go into labor, just to keep everyone organized. And that way Brandon and our doula and everyone would have access to, like, you know, what kind of things did I have? Go into the basement and get, I had these flooring mats that we could put underneath the birth pool. And, you know, like get the poly, we're going to put poly underneath to protect our floors from any water, or body fluids or, you know, whatever. But the plan was to give birth in a birth pool, and I just didn't want the floors to get wet. So we were going to put poly, then we were going to put the floor mats, then the birth pool. You know, it's stuff like that, like text our admin to work on the schedule and cancel any appointments that we have tomorrow and things like that. And Brandon's like, no, I'm not going to review that list. And so I was like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, no big, I am going to be chill as a cucumber. And that is something that I have been working on for the last several years, and it has paid off. I have become chill, and I have become adaptable, and I have become very go with the flow, probably to almost the other extreme compared to who I was before, where I was like super organized, structured, type A, and now it's kind of like, it'll happen, whatever, you know. So that's 9:30. We finish our movie, I want to say by like 10:30, and my whole pregnancy, the midwife that we have been working with has said, when you go into labor, I want you to have a glass of wine or take some Benadryl or do whatever you need to go to sleep. And I struggle with sleep a lot, so that you can relax and build up and save your energy for labor. Because last time I had a 3-day labor, and by the end of it, my body was just so fatigued, I could not continue. So the plan was sleep through early labor as much as possible, wake up, have the baby. So I am committed to this plan. And I am just like, hey. And I didn't have a glass of wine, and I think I may have taken like a few bags of sleepy time tea and then some magnesium. And I laid down, and that is when the contractions started. And I got this sensation of like, oh my gosh, I am about to poop my brains out. So I go into the bathroom, and I did poop my brains out. And, you know, when you go into labor, your body just like, it releases and gets rid of anything in the way because of the pressure. And so I'm in there going to the bathroom. I'm having like back-to-back contractions. My other plan was I was going to do hypnobirthing just like I did the last time. And last time I would describe it as a pain-free labor, 3 days, regular contractions, 2 minutes apart. Like, I ended up dilated to an 8, 90% effaced, and it was no big deal. It was like having an intense period. And I just got into that meditative space, and I felt incredible. And I actually kind of enjoyed labor. This was different. It was so fast, I could not relax, because the contractions were just one right after the other, and it would kind of let up, and I would be like, oh, what the heck just happened? And it started off like that instantly. So I'm just in the bathroom like, oh my gosh, I am not handling this well. Like, emotionally, mentally, I am struggling, and this is a challenge. And so I'm trying to wrap my mind around this and get into that like hypnobirthing meditative zone where like the whole theory behind it is you want to relax your muscles as much as possible. Breathe, but I could not do it. And every time I would have a really strong contraction, I would find myself like kind of moaning out, like, like it was really bad. So I'm getting louder and louder, and it's not within my control. And I finish in the bathroom, I go back to my bedroom, I lay down thinking, okay, I am committed to following my instructions. I'm going to fall asleep, and I am going to wake up in the morning and have this baby. So I lay down. 10 or 15 minutes later, I am having such intense contractions that I am once again, like, not really screaming, but moaning very deeply. And I was like, great, I'm going to wake Brandon up. This isn't cool. I'll just go get in the bathtub and like begin the labor in there, and maybe that'll relax me enough to like get my bearings, and get into that hypnobirthing, like Zen meditative state. So I go to the bathroom, I end up on the toilet again, and I had like 2 or 3 kind of pushing contractions where I felt the pressure in my butt and my vagina. And I was just like, whoa! And that's when, because the way that our home is configured, our daughter's room, who is, just under 2 years old, is literally on the other side of the bathroom. So I am in there having these like contractions, and I'm like, I've got to get her out of this house. This is not going how I thought it would. And I swore up and down I would not call anyone to come get her in the middle of the night. Because I was like, I'll just labor through the night and she'll be okay. And then we'll call someone in the morning and it'll be like a peaceful transition. Because I was so scared if we wake her up in the middle of the night and she sees me in labor, or she sees like the birth pool or whatever, it's going to worry her and be a problem. Like, I don't want to send her out of the house when all that stuff is going on and she's going to walk through and see it. I just assumed it would be troubling. And so I get back up, I go into the bedroom. It's like, I don't know, maybe 10:50 or 11, somewhere in there. And I say, Brandon, wake up. He's only been asleep for like 20 minutes. And I was like, I need you to call your parents right now. And I need you to tell them to come pick up our daughter, Carice. And Brandon is like completely disoriented. And he was like, right now? And I was like, yes, call them right now and tell them to come get Carice. And he's like, okay. And he's trying to figure out what is going on. This is not how we planned. Why are you not sleeping? Why are you not following the midwife's instructions? And I'm asking myself the same thing, but I'm just like, this is not good. Like, I cannot do this by myself. I need you up. I need the daughter out of the house. And so he's like on the phone, calling them, kind of taking in, like, in this like half awake state, what is happening. I go back to the bathroom, back to the toilet, and the dilation station, as they call it. And I'm sitting there on the toilet feeling such immense pressure. And I'm just like having these contractions, one right after the other. At some point, Brandon has our midwife on the phone, and she's like, let me hear her having these contractions. And I'm having them, and I'm like, it's like awful. And she's like, Courtney, try to have the contractions without making any noise, like just breathe through them. And I'm like, I am trying. Like, I just don't know if I can. And keep in mind, she's on the phone. She doesn't know what's happening either. And so I'm like, and so it was like completely uncontrollable. So Brandon I think he called our doula and our midwife. I think our doula started heading over. The midwife lives like 30 minutes away, I want to say. The doula lives about the same, about 30 minutes away. So Brandon is outside of the bathroom, kind of pacing in our living room, and I'm like, I need help. I don't know what I need. Like, I'm just in a state, man. And Brandon's like, where's all of the stuff? And I'm like, you took it down to the basement a day or two ago. Like, it's all in the basement. Grab the birth kit. We're gonna need that. Find me some puppy mats, like some pads or something to put on the ground. And so I get up, he's getting the birth kit. I start walking out of our very small bathroom. Brandon comes up and he's like, what do you need? And I could not tell him. Like, I was so disoriented. And then I want to say I was like, I want to get in the bathtub. Like, I just want to be in the hot water. This isn't good. I don't feel good. And he's like, no, you can't get in the bath. Sweet Brandon, he was like, you cannot get in the bathtub right now. Don't get in the shower. And I was like, okay, fine. Put some puppy pads in the living room floor. Grab me the workout ball. So he did all of that. And I get on my hands and knees on these puppy mats. And in my mind, I wanted to drape myself over this stability ball. And I could not do it because the pressure was so great. So I'm like on my knees with my legs apart, feeling this pressure, feeling like, okay, what position can I physically get into? It is so painful. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. My first experience I would describe as pain-free. This was not so. I could not get myself into a place of relaxation. I couldn't get my breathing down. I could not get my mind in the frame it needed to be in to have this like hypnobirthing peaceful experience. So I'm just like trying to gather my thoughts and think practically. So I was like, okay, knees out. So I do like kind of a modified child's pose, like doggy style child's pose. And I reach down and I feel, oh my gosh, like there is this like, oh, I cannot even describe it. It was like this hard, oh. And I was like, Brandon, I feel his head. And Brandon was like, no, you don't. And in it, he told me after the fact, he was like, I thought you were just being dramatic. And I was like, okay, maybe I don't. Because then another contraction happened. It kind of went back up. And that's how it goes. It kind of, whenever you are pushing out a baby, they can kind of like bob their way out. And so it kind of disappeared. And I was like, maybe I didn't feel it. I had another contraction or two. I felt way more of the head. And I was like, Brandon, he's coming out. You need to get a flashlight and take a look down there. Like, just see what you see. So Brandon's taking a flashlight, trying to figure out what is going on. I have 2 more contractions. The head is out. And Brandon said he just put his hands like kind of down, and all of a sudden the head was in his hands, and then one contraction later, the body flipped out. And he was like, Brandon's holding him, and I am like doggy style on the floor, looking down, and all I see is blood just like pooling, just spewing out of me. And I'm like, OMG, I wonder when it will stop. Is this normal? I think it is, but I don't really know how much blood I should be expecting to see. I should probably get my head low. And I'm thinking all of these things while, and then on speakerphone, I'm realizing someone is on the line. And it was our midwife's assistant. And she is saying, like, what's happening? Brandon, can you get Courtney to lay on her side? And I'm like, I don't know what I said, but it was obvious that the baby was born, and she's like, hand Courtney the baby. But the problem was the cord and the baby were like threaded between my legs behind me. Brandon is holding them, and I am on my hands and knees. And so Brandon is in shock because he just caught a baby. I am in shock because I just gave birth to a baby, like, oh my gosh. And there's blood all over my floor, like, and when will it stop? And then we're like, okay, wait, I do need to lay down. I do need to get this baby through my legs, and then the assistant keeps saying, I don't want to name names because I don't want to jeopardize anyone's privacy, but the assistant kept saying, just give Courtney the baby, and he's like, I don't know how. And I'm like, Brandon, just thread the baby back through my legs. Like, send it back through my legs. So he sends the baby back through my legs. I hold the baby with one hand. I pull it up. And then I lay down on my side. And Brandon is just, like, trying to figure out, what do I do next? Like, so the assistant talks him through doing the assessment on the baby after they're born, all the vitals, like what's the heart rate, what's the color, is the baby, breathing, all of those things, the APGAR stuff. And then after that, he's like looking around because I'm like, I'm getting very cold. I need, and I'm like shivering, which is a very normal response after you have a baby. There are so many hormones and so much processing, it's very common to like shiver and shake. And I'm just like, I'm freezing. Can you get me like a towel or something? I'm also covered in blood by this point because I've been holding the baby, and the baby is covered in blood. And Brandon's like wiping up stuff, like the floor with the puppy mats, and he's getting me a blanket. And soon after, the assistant walks through our door. I learn that my in-laws are in the driveway, and then our doula comes. They check me and the baby out, and then they ended up delivering the placenta, which was no big deal. Like, you just kind of like start getting a contraction, and that's where you can just sort of like push it out, and it doesn't hurt or anything. And then my midwife came soon after that. They finished assessing me. They gave me like a sponge bath in my living room floor, and then Brandon's like cutting the cord, they're doing all that stuff. And then I get up and they walk me into my bed, and I laid down. That was really nice. We had our golden hour, which is, like an hour where you get to just enjoy the baby, and do skin to skin and breastfeed and, like talk to your husband. And so we did that. They're in here charting and making soup I had some soup set aside, and they made that. And then they have you get up out of bed to make sure that you can walk and that you can get to the bathroom and stuff. So we did all of that, And then I got back in bed. We took pictures. We weighed and measured the baby, you know, all the standard stuff, did his little foot stamp. And then they left and we went to bed. And Carice slept through the entire thing. I think she woke up once while I was having contractions and she said, noise, and then went right back to sleep. So that's my birth story. Now that I have had a 3-day experience and a 2-hour experience, I guess I didn't say that. The whole thing from start to finish was 2 hours. And now that I've had a very long labor and a very short labor, I can honestly say they both have their redeeming qualities and they both have their pros and cons. I think the long labor was a lot more peaceful in some ways, but the short labor is preferred because I have kids. I feel like, you know, I just want to get my kids back. I want to know that they're settled. I'm so thankful we did not have a transfer. I'm thankful everything went smoothly. I did get a tear. It was not even enough to justify stitches, though. You just kind of keep your legs together for a couple weeks and it goes back to normal. And that has so far been my experience. And this is also TMI, but I did get a terrible case of hemorrhoids. But that's also clearing up slowly and steadily. I'm experimenting with all the holistic stuff. And everything else, though, has been so smooth and easy. I have felt so wonderful this last week. Nothing for me personally, there is not a tired that compares to pregnancy tired. So I felt way better in postpartum than I did in my pregnancy. Even today, like, I'm at a point a week out where I definitely feel a lot more like myself. I've been up, I've done some chores, but I'm disciplining myself to rest for another week. And then just increase activity each day, little by little. I have a lifting restriction, no more than the weight of this baby, between now and like 6 weeks out. So, you know, there's that kind of stuff. Carice is adjusting well. She struggled for the first few days and was like super emotional, but now she's kind of herself again. And she loves having a brother, and it is such a joy to enjoy her having a brother. Brandon has been phenomenal. He's taken great care of me. Yeah, I just feel like this whole experience, and having a second baby is so much easier also because you don't have to Google every single thing. Like when we had our first, every little thing, like how to swaddle, how to latch, how to burp a baby, all of that stuff, we were spending so much time looking for answers and techniques and resources. And once we learned all of that, you don't really have to reinvest in the learning. So it gives you the opportunity to just make the investment in creating an environment of peace and healing and resting. I've spent a lot of time doing administrative catch-up and watching TV. I've watched all of the new Doctor Who season, and I've watched a ton of this YouTube channel Jolly. They do like food review. It's not really reviews. It's food experiences. So they go and try restaurants and stuff. They're two English guys, and I've enjoyed that channel. But yeah, that's kind of it. And now I'm stepping back into life this week, little by little, and just letting my body heal. I am going to be doing the Expecting and Empowered Postpartum Exercise app, which begins basically the day that you give birth, but I waited a little bit because of the tear. I have been doing a lot of breath work which has been nice. And that's that. I'm going to make another video about my pregnancy journey also. So, see you later. Thanks for watching.